Welcome back everyone. So this is a follow-up video for my 5-year review of the Stihl 500i. I've had this saw here, the 572XP Husqvarna or Husqvarna. It's not Husqvarna, there's no A there. So I've had this saw since about April. So yeah, going on 8 months, and I've used it probably about 10 times, and I think it's an absolutely fantastic saw. It's got some nice features in terms of this clutch cover has the captive nuts in it, so the nuts don't fall out. The only weird thing with it is the tensioner is in the clutch cover. There's a lot of contention about whether that's a good or bad thing. Again, I don't care what anyone says, the Stihl setup is way better than this. But, needless to say, there's a few other things about this that are better. The stock dog setup doesn't have that weird extra long bottom dog, and this doesn't seem to get caught up in bucking as much as what the Stihl does, even though it doesn't really feel like it's got the power. One thing you do really notice is that you need to rev it pretty hard. So if you start to sort of bog down in a cut, you've got to sort of pull back or pull up and let it get that momentum back again. One thing that's really bad about these is the muffler arrangement. I've been through 2 iterations of exhaust upgrades. This was my first attempt. It may sort of look like a straight run, but it's got a couple of bends in it. When you're sort of looking through the hole in the exhaust, it's not like a complete direct run. There's a little bit of deflection going on there, but it didn't really seem to make the saw operate the way that it should. It was just hitting the rev limiter way too easy, even in big cuts. So this is the second attempt. It's sort of like an iron horse, but I've gone like this size. I think that is 35 or thereabout millimeters up to 50, and then I've got a sort of a port coming out the side there to make the deflection of the gases come out. When I had this one on and I was in like big cuts, when it was sort of deflecting here, the timber was hard up against it and the heat was just deflecting straight onto my hand. It was horrendous. I mean, if you did bucking, if you had I don't know, like a 32-inch bar and you were never right into the timber, this would be pretty cool. But this seems to have performed quite well now that I've had it. You'll notice that when I've made these up, I've put braces on them. I think it's weird when people make these and don't put braces. If you're in the timber that I'm in and you're on the dogs, it does not make sense not to have a brace. Air filter wise, these things are just as bad as the Stihl. So these saws have a similar problem to the Stihl in that they ingest fines. So you can see the colouring on this, it's a little bit red. So this is filter oil. It's a cotton version, not a foam version. So I'll spray this with that, like just a light touch, and it seems to have done a better job in capturing those fines. Sort of look down in there and see remnants of fine dust. It's really bad. You can just see the lip around there where there's a little bit of oil residue, so it's definitely doing its job. So I'll keep doing that. I imagine that might be a bit contentious for people. I have heard the Daruka guy say the same thing with these Husqvarnas, that you really need to get onto that. And yeah, now that I've witnessed the premature wear on the piston, which could be due to either heat build-up or ingesting fines, I don't know. But now that I've rectified the exhaust problem, this is the stock exhaust. It's got this little deflector up the top here, but for the gases to get to that, they've got to come in and then bounce around, and there's a series of little holes, probably smaller than these bolt holes, that lead up into that area there to then come out, and it just retains the heat stupidly bad. So these mufflers are absolutely horrendous. That's the first thing, that when you get one of these saws, you've got to piss that off. I don't know if anyone locally has got a 572 that wants to try this muffler. Maybe try and get in touch with me and we can sort something out. It's not bad, it's not brilliant, but yeah, bit of fun. So in terms of bar and chain combos, the saw was supposed to come with a 20-inch bar, and I got an upgrade at the time for a 24X Tough. It's pretty heavy. It's an 058 and that is an 84 drive link. So after a little while of running the 24, I thought I'd give a 28 a go. So I got this from the local Husqvarna dealer, got a couple of full skip chains to go with it, and to be honest with you, I haven't looked back. In terms of running the 24 or the 28, I think this is more than capable of running this 28 with a full skip. What I've actually done today is buy a full composition chain for it, a C85, so 058, 92 drive link. It was interesting watching the Okie Woodsman the other day, and he had, I don't know what it was, Oregon or something bar, and that was a 93 drive link. I think he ran the 93 on his 562 or something like that. I can't really remember, or his Echoes. But this is a Husqvarna branded bar and it's not 93 drive link, so I thought that was a little bit odd. But anyway, so I made the mistake of trying to put the Husqvarna chain on the steel and it wouldn't tension out correctly. So I won't make that mistake. I've reorganized my chain so that all of my Husqvarnas are in one particular spot. So I won't be doing that again. Another interesting thing about this saw is I've started to not use the decomp. And I know I've said with the steel that, well, what's the point of having them if you don't use them? But this just doesn't seem to have the same compression as the steels, like nowhere near. And it's not that hard to pull it when the decomp is in the out position. In terms of the anti-vibe, you cannot beat this saw. This is leaps and bounds above the steel. And when you're plunging with it, you just don't feel a thing. But when you're plunging with the steel, it feels like it's about to kick back all the time. So yeah, these things are absolutely brilliant in that respect. You can't beat them. And even building up the 372 clone, even that thing operates really well for a Chinese knockoff. Just the way that Husqvarna make their saws and where they put their springs, I think they've done a tremendous job in creating that anti-vibration element and, you know, less fatigue. That's sort of one thing that I've started noticing now that I'm using this saw more and more. I thought that that extra 400 grams over and above the 500i would make a huge difference. And now when I grab the saw, I don't notice a difference at all. It's just so well balanced. I probably noticed it more with the 24-inch bar on it than I do with the 28, which is crazy because these bars, even though they're called like a light bar, they're not light at all. There's not that many grams saving over a regular you know, normal steel unlaminated bar. So anyway, this saw is a brilliant saw. It cost me 1,800 bucks, and yeah, I spent a couple more dollars on it, another bar for it. I've done a muffler mod, which is absolutely essential. You cannot have one of these and not do that. Whether it's made more power, I'm not really sure. It has to have over and above the stock muffler, but in terms of more power from the straighter pipe run that I had, probably not. Like, that thing was just crazy, like running through like big timber. It was bigger than 28 inch. It was like closer to 40 through really hard, and it was hitting the rev limiter like nothing. So you had to be on the throttle. So these things have got a lot of power. You know, perhaps I've baffled that a little bit too much, but noise wise, this thing is brilliant. It's not too loud, and it helps it breathe, and it doesn't retain the heat. Does it keep up with the steel? Probably not, but it's not far behind. It comes down to chain care and how particular you are in maintaining the sharpness of your chain. It's absolutely essential, and the more I'm into this, the more I realize that you know, don't worry about porting your saw, worry about learning how to sharpen it correctly. It's really all down to that. Another good tip is to make sure you're using decent bar oil. I have used various different brands, the Gulf Western stuff that is nice and cheap, and it's tacky. People swear by it, but in my experience, because it is tacky, it doesn't have the viscosity to go around the bar, and therefore isn't doing its job. So there's a happy medium between sort of high and low viscosity, and me personally, I'd rather low. You know, the whole idea is that when you fill up your tank with fuel or gas and you fill up your oil, you should be using 1:1. And if you're not, then you're not doing it right. And if you've got oil that's supposed to be coming out, whether it comes out and it flings or it doesn't really matter. Whether it stays there, doesn't matter. If it's flowing, it's flowing. That's what you want. I have thought about putting another clutch cover on this. I got an aftermarket, well, it's still Husqvarna full wrap handle, and it comes with a bigger clutch cover that will take up this negative space down the bottom here. I don't know, the only thing that you do lose out on is you don't have captive nuts in the other one, and they are cross compatible, these clutch covers. So I've thought about putting perhaps the fuller one on this saw and then swapping this onto my 365 just to make it look a bit different. We'll see what happens with that. I might change my mind at some point. But all in all, these really are a great saw for 1,800 bucks. If you can't stretch out for full price a 500i, then this is the next best thing. 72 or thereabout cc. Very, very capable. I'm cutting hard timbers up to about like 11 kilonewtons. And and it does the job, you know, without fail. I don't notice it taking a long time or bogging down. So yeah, highly recommend it. So that's my 8-month review. So thanks for watching.